Good evening. The ground-level battles have been raging on the streets for weeks, but deadly airstrikes by the military have now pushed the country of Myanmar towards civil war. Thousands are trying to flee across the border with Thailand as political crisis deepens into something both more deadly and longer-lasting. The worst-hit areas are populated mainly by Karen people, an ethnic minority now turning themselves into refugees to save their own lives. Over 100 people, including several children, were killed at the weekend in cities across the country. The violence began with that military coup last month that toppled the elected government. Now resistance leaders are calling for the various ethnic groups to band together as allies in a federal army. Newsnight has spoken to activists on the ground in Myanmar who are writing goodbye letters to their family, saying they're prepared to die for this cause. Here's Emir Nader. Tom Andrews, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Thierry Henry has won just about every footballing accolade in the book. World Cups, Euros, Player of the Year several times in a row, you name it. But he decided to quit social media last week, Twitter and Instagram specifically, saying racial abuse goes completely ignored by the companies who take copyright infringements more seriously. I sat down with him earlier to ask him what the response from Twitter's CEO had been to this and to discuss wider issues of racism in football, the Take the Knee campaign and Qatar's hosting of the World Cup next year.
Very important.
So presumably when Thierry Henry makes a stand and says, I'm getting off this platform until you sort it out, the head of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, gets straight on the phone and says, what can we do? Did you have a response from the company? Have you heard from anyone?
No, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
How does a school attempt to undo a sexually abusive culture within its walls? Does it start with the parents and how they educate their children? Does it start with the pupils and whether they're prepared to speak up, condemn and put themselves and their friends through a torment of testimony? Does it start with the institution itself and its ability to recognise and, yes, call out what is happening in and outside of school time? The website that invited women to share their experiences of sexual abuse anonymously is now hosting some 8,000 allegations. Not all, of course, will have been posted by victims of sexual assault. But when the leader of the opposition calls for a public inquiry, when a police officer has called it the next biggest scandal to hit Britain, suddenly everyone's listening. So what needs to happen now? Seema Kotecha reports. Things here, and they are clearly very difficult for all the different authorities to work out what they're hearing. But Mary, if I can start with you, that story of a school reporting to the police rather than dealing with anything in-house, putting, according to the victim, the boy's needs above hers, possibly because he was very academic or a prefect or all the rest of it. Does this align with your experience of what is going on, has been going on?
Well, that's obviously...
I see you nodding to that. From a cultural perspective, do you think it is important now to, if you like, overreact to all the tiny microaggressions, whether it's the jokes, the whistles, the comments, or does that just turn a school into a sort of police state where nobody dares say anything? I mean, what do you crack down on to get the culture right at the root?
Well, the problem with the jokes and the banter and the language...
Now, as we come on air tonight, there are new charges that have been filed against the British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell. She's accused of grooming underage girls for sex with her former boyfriend, the late financier Jeffrey Epstein. The new indictment adds a fourth victim to the three referred to in the original case. This case is alleged to have taken place in between 2001 and 2004. Previously, she was accused of 4 counts, and the latest of those was in 1997. Ms Maxwell denies the charges. Well, we're going to be joined now by Gloria Allred, the lawyer representing some 20 alleged victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Gloria Allred, thanks for bringing us up to date. What do you understand of the significance of these new charges?